you know, but I was running between meetings, so here I am.
Well, Rick, do you want to get going?
Sure. I'll call this meeting to order. I'm glad to see so many people are participating. Maybe we could introduce each other to the new members of the board that were approved at the last Ohio River Way board meeting. I see everybody knows Jack.
Hi, guys.
Jody, I don't formally introduce yourself to everybody. Jody, that'd be great.
Hi, I'm Jody Robinson and excited about participating in this board. Near and dear to my heart is this topic of connecting via the river and land. Used to be a New York State Park Ranger way back when. And so this feels like getting back to my roots. And I just doing some freelance work and do a lot of work with the DeVue Good Foundation, Vision Zero Northern Kentucky. That's my most active client.
And Jody also was the Main Street manager for both Fort Thomas and for Bellevue, and was very active in Green Umbrella. So
yes.
David, do you mind introducing yourself?
Not at all. It's a pure pleasure being with everybody and meeting everybody electronically. I am Brewster's co-chair on this Ohio River Recreation Trail and have worked with him for many, many years now. For 30 years, I was director of outdoor and environmental education for the public school system and for the University of Louisville. And I still work for the University of Louisville, even though I retired from JCPS. I'm also board chair of a group here in Louisville called River City Paddle Sports, and we have a boathouse on the waterfront there in downtown Louisville, and am very active with our local tributaries. And it's a pleasure to be on this board.
Well, welcome. Why don't we give all the existing board members who have decided to stay with the board a chance to introduce themselves quickly. Simon, you want to start?
Hi, yeah, I'm the treasurer. I'm happy to have been working with Rick and Jan and Brewster for quite a few years on the cycling part of Ohio River Way, which we think we're near to cracking open finally after nearly 2 decades. So I can be reached. I live in Cincinnati, and you can reach me regarding any financial stuff.
Thank you. Scott?
Sure, Scott Goodfellow. 30 years P&G, Cincinnati native, West Sider. For 20 years, I was deep into the Cincinnati cycling community with the Cincinnati Cycle Club. It's waned a little bit in the last few years. I blew my knee out a little while ago. More than a little while ago, but 5 years ago. But it still have a lot of roots back into that, a lot of friends in the community, and want to make sure that we have deep connections back to the cycling community, as well as running community, as well as everything community, for the benefit of everyone. I live right off the Anderson Township Trail that went in, almost 10 years ago, I guess, or actually more than 10 years ago. And, want to make sure that that continues to grow, as well as all the network continues to grow.
Thanks,
Hey, Scott. Good to see you again, Scott, and have your enthusiasm.
How about you, Wim? Say hello.
How about me? Well, I think I know most people on this call. Jack, are you here? Yeah, okay. Wim Portman, Jan and I are chairing the Crown fundraising event, working closely with Simon, Rick, and others. And been involved with Ohio River Way for many years, since we first started getting Oasis going 15, 16 years ago. So yeah, glad to be here, and known Brewster and Jack and others for a long time. Yeah.
Jack, you can say a few words. I said everybody knows you, that's true, but what have you been doing lately?
Well, as I think everyone knows, I did retire from Great Parks in 2019. I'm staying very busy, involved with this organization as well. I'm doing some volunteer work for Cardinal Land Conservancy, serving on their land protection committee. And I've actually done a little bit of consulting, some trail consulting work, both here in Dearborn County and a project in Cincinnati. So I'm staying busy and enjoying life. and getting outside as much as I can.
Good for you. Francis, you want to introduce yourself?
I was just hearing my giant teenage squirrel trying to get in the front door. And I wondered if it was literally a squirrel. No, he was getting the mail. But the magnitude of the efforts that you all put into everything is not lost on me. This is a great group of getter-doners. And so I have been involved with the Ohio River Recreation Trail for a little while, since we started talking about trying to put a frame on it. It's not like the river's new, but this effort is new in terms of how old the river is, for sure. Also involved with the Great Miami River Way formation back in the day, and not too long ago, had been involved with Tri-State Trails when we were first starting to put the crown together, and then you guys grabbed it and ran. So I think this is great, and happy to be here.
But professionally, what do you do?
Oh, I'm the managing director of Frost Brown Todd's Project Finance Advisory Group, which is a consulting arm of the law firm in project finance, P3 projects. So anything complicated that needs funding, that's professionally what I do.
Thanks, Francis. Everybody knows Brewster. We don't need to have him introduce himself, other than the fact that we've been working together since Ohio River Way was formed, with a full-time executive director, Pat Tim, and then it morphed to a whole volunteer organization. And during that time period, Brewster was able to start Paddle Fest, which celebrated its anniversary this past summer. We're proud of that. Another outgrowth of that was Adventure Crew, which involves urban youth. And I understand a group went to Kuchiching this summer, which is pretty amazing.
Yep.
The scholarship. And that continues to grow with the proceeds from Paddle Fest. Women, all the other members of the past board of Ohio River Way are very excited about the progress we made to raise money for the Crown. With the joint effort with Wasson Way Board, we will be able to announce here next month that we've reached our goal, and we'll be able to announce some new major gifts that will help us propel the project into phase 2 at some point next year, with another group of leaders who will be raising that money, but we'll be able to seed it properly for success. And then lastly, the board, before we morphed into with new members, we pretty much unanimously voted to adopt the Ohio River Recreation Trail, which I'm real proud of because it fits right into the wheelhouse of our nonprofit incorporation papers. It certainly leverages, again, our region's most valuable natural resource and the energy of this group. So we hope that we can all work together to bring this to fruition, like the other initiatives that we've launched in the past. So that's the introductions. And I'm really happy I don't have to do minutes anymore after 15 years. So that's
Well, between me and Jody, we got it covered, I think.
good.
I'm so excited.
So the next item on the agenda is to review the minutes. The September 14th ones were already approved at the last meeting, but I wanted everyone to have a copy of those so you can see some of the discussions that went on as we took on this new project. And the only outstanding one that needs attention is we really want to make sure we have a good secretary of legal counsel on the board, so the interest of the board members are protected with proper D&O insurance, and that we can continue to function as a nonprofit as our status is renewed with the Secretary of State. Everybody's got the paperwork to do that. The financial report is in there as well, and our goal is to, again, sweep the money that has been raised for the Crown bike path into a Green Umbrellas account for the Crown. But we'll leave enough money in there to make sure that any transition expenses are covered. And Simon's working directly with Brewster on making sure that the new bank account is set up, and I'll let him give you an update on that in a minute. So the minutes that we do need to approve is is the second set that we sent you in advance from September 22nd. At that meeting, the past board accepted the recommendations of the nomination committee. And at that time, David Wicks, Jody Robinson, Susan Schneider, Francis, and Jack were added to the board. We also accepted the resignations of several Ohio Riverway board members. And so the current board is listed in those minutes. Can I have a motion to, any questions first before we have a motion to approve these minutes? Okay, again, the terms are outlined on the last page of the minutes, which pretty much conform to our bylaws. So I just took the liberty to plug people in the way I see fit. And again, that can be amended down the road as we add more board members. The idea is people won't go off the board at the same time. So as we add people, let's make sure they go in the right slot as far as their terms. So can I have a motion to approve the September 22nd board meeting?
Sorry, quick question, Rick. Do you know offhand when my term expires?
Yes, Simon, you are, you're good to the end of 23.
Oh, that's a bit longer than I was intending. We'll have to.
Yeah, but you can
we'll
resign. You can resign anytime you want, like anyone can. But these terms were carried over from the past board, and then the new people are plugged in.
And Rick, I think I'm the same as Simon, correct? Or am I 22?
Scott, you are till the end of 22 as well.
20, okay.
No, Simon's to the end of 23, and you're until the end of 22.
Okay.
So again,
Thank you for the clarity.
the idea is to grow this board so it can effectively represent the cultural, racial, historical, small town, large town, recreational interests along the river. So this is just the beginning of a robust board. So I have a motion to approve the minutes. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good.
Who made the motion to approve it?
I think, Simon, did you, or you asked a question? Let's say Simon made the first motion and Scott to second.
That's fine.
We all unanimously approved. So the last official duty I'll have is to conduct the election of the officers. Brewster and I talked about this before the meeting, and the nominating committee also discussed it. I'd like to propose Brewster as the new chairperson, which with the intention of the Ohio River Recreation Trail being the primary focus of this group. David Wicks has been Brewster's cohort since the start, so I think he'd be a great vice chairman for Ohio River Way. And then we've been talking about trying to recruit a secretary of legal counsel, but Jody volunteered in the meantime. Scott, I think, or not Scott, Jeff Schlomer was trying to recruit some young lawyer from TAP, but we couldn't find anybody. He'll continue to try to do that. But in the meantime, if Jody would volunteer to be the secretary of legal counsel, that'd be great. And then Simon is graciously accepted to remain as the treasurer, which we all appreciate because he knows where every penny is hidden in every bank account, not hidden, but everything's accounted for. He's been a great job with his efforts to file our taxes and make sure our nonprofit status stays in force and keep track of all the dough that we've been able to assemble over the years. And then lastly, Francis Bononi is going to be the president of Ohio River Way. So we'll have some staff on board, which is great. Is there any discussion about those nominees for the officers of Ohio River Way?
Well, I should just make a point that Francis said that with her connection to Frost Brown Todd, would also be able to look out for a sharp young attorney to fill that role if we can't get one from Bruce or Jeff. Okay. Well, do you want to leave the secretary position open, or what's your wishes, Brew? I think we ought to approve the slate now, okay. And if we get somebody to fill that job, and if Jody's willing to step aside.
Oh, shucks.
and take on another responsibility, we'd be fine.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, well, the nominating committee proposes the officers as stated. Can I have a motion to adopt that resolution? Or anybody want to approve that motion?
I
David,
saw, I saw
I'll make
David
a
raise his
motion
hand.
to approve the slate.
Okay, who wants to second that motion?
I'll second it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Rick,
Congratulations.
what is the role of president? How does that differ from chairperson?
In our bylaws, it was always intended to be a staff position that would actually, in this case, work on a contractual basis. We don't want any employees of the Howard Way. But when it was first set up, Pat Tim served that function. They serve at the pleasure of the executive or the officers and the board, and fulfill specific duties outlined by the board. And we'll have to go to some kind of contractual relationship with Frances once we raise some money, because she'll have specific duties that are not volunteer duties that will require some more staff time.
Sounds more like a chief of staff than a president.
That's how it's titled in our bylaws for some reason. It's called a president.
I agree. I think the title's a little, call me what you want. Do I have voting rights? Do you know, Rick? Because I just voted.
I think you do. Essentially a copy of the bylaws too, but I think you do.
Okay.
Or you wouldn't be named as one of the officers, but why don't you check that out and put it in the minutes when you got the whole bylaws sent a month ago.
Yeah, I got it here. Yeah.
it said something about it's the CEO role. When I read through the bylaws, I think it was listed with all of the voting.
And if you
Members.
can't find any paperwork, I have the original huge box of material from the forming of the Ohio River Way and all the paperwork over the years. It takes up about 10% of my basement.
And I sent the group the code of regulations of Ohio River Way that outlines all these, and also the registration from the state of Ohio. So they have a copy of that.
Just to ask a question, if you have 1/10 of your basement full of documents, is there any way that you could sort of summarize what the Ohio River Way has done in the past 20 years in a, like a 2-page overview? I have a good idea, but I'm just not sure everything, and if you're the record keeper, is that possible?
Well,
the minutes of September 14th give you a real thumbnail sketch.
Okay.
On page 1, and then if you want me to elaborate some of those things, Simon and I can do that. It's not a real deep history. Basically, we got a lot done first year, started Paddle Fest, tried to do a master plan for the whole Maysville to Madison route, found that no one wanted to pay for a plan. It was too ambitious, decided to get rid of staff and work voluntarily. Brewster got Paddle Fest done with volunteers, no staff. Well, we had part-time staff. It was a big success, continues to be spun off to the adventure group. And Wim and I and a few of the people were frustrated. We couldn't build a trail on Oasis for 15 years. We just kept on advocating for the use of the Oasis rail corridor. And finally, 2 years ago, we formed an agreement with Wasson to raise money for Crown to get something done. And Oasis will happen second after Wasson. So that's the history.
Perfect.
We raised about $1 million in that initially for the Oasis. Yeah.
And Wim can tell this group in a report later on how much we raised when we get into that section of the agenda. But David, that's pretty much it. We had high hopes for a big regional trail with a master plan approved at once, but we've taken a different approach, a mile at a time. And it looks like it's going to get done, but it'll get done a mile at a time. And that's why the Ohio River Trail is so important, because it'll lay out that big vision again and get agreement on it among all the municipalities. And then we'll just continue to work on it a mile at a time.
What's the name of the company that owns the railroad, the Oasis corridor? Because I was completely blanking on it. I just cannot remember it.
Genesee and Wyoming, right?
G&W, yeah. Yeah.
And then it was built, it was purchased by a venture capital group, which I can't remember the name, Berkshire or something.
Brookfield, I think.
Brookfield, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
Sorta's lawyer finally has a term sheet that's been agreed to, and they're working on the final details. So it's going to actually happen here.
Well, let me ask you, do you want to go right now to do a quick report on the status of the Crown project?
Yeah, I'm going to turn the reins of the meeting over to you, Brew, since you're the chairperson. And why don't you follow the agenda? Let's go.
All right. Well, first of all, Rick, thanks so much for your leadership over the years. You've been the glue that's held us all together, and it's unbelievable what a small band of committed people have actually been able to make happen in the Cincinnati area. It's unbelievable. So anyway, thanks for everything you do, buddy. And so thank you very much, folks, for the new team we have here. And I'm so grateful that, to Wim and to Scott and Rick, of course, and of course you, Simon, for sticking with this little effort here, because your experience and skills can really help complement the rest of the team that we have now and we'll bring on for the next big thing we're going to undertake here. I know successfully. So it strikes me that we might as well just go through a couple of things. Like number 4 on the agenda is in-house, management here, about when we meet, what day of the month and time and all that stuff. So we are obligated to have, frankly, just one meeting a year, which is our annual meeting. And I just picked randomly at the second Tuesday of January to have that. It has to be in January according to the bylaws. And so unless there's an objection, I think we ought to just approve that we'll do our annual meeting the second Tuesday at 4 o'clock in January. And then the suggestion here is we meet as a full board every other month. We could change that to 4 times a year. What's your pleasure?
Well, the pace of the work that's going to happen, Brew. I think that's something you should.
Yeah, my gut says that we should 1 month have the executive committee meet. The other month have the full board meet. That'd be 6 full board meetings a year and 6 executive committee meetings a year. I think that with the fast movement we have, tight deadlines for proposals, et cetera, it makes sense to not skip a beat here and just keep things moving. And then make sure that the full board is engaged with any discussions and decisions or recommendations from the executive committee by email in the interim.
The same thing will be happening with the Crown group. We have a leadership group that has Jan and Wim, Portman, myself, Simon, Bruce Petrie, Wade Johnson, Sean McGorry, and Danielle DeCepoli. And we meet weekly on the Crown. And there's no need, for us to do anything but report to the full board every other month, like you'll be doing on the progress. Right. But we'll keep the heat on getting the Crown fundraising done and getting all the transition at Green Umbrella to occur, so phase 2 can happen. So we'll continue to work internally. Women, Simon and I will be on that task force, and then you'll have your executive committee that'll be working on the trail, the Ohio Recreation Trail, and then we'll report every other month as a full board. That makes sense.
Good. Okay. Excellent. I like that. Okay. So does the second Tuesday of each month for the executive committee work? So basically the second Tuesday of each month at 4 o'clock, we'll be either doing an executive committee or the full board, at least until we change our minds. All right. Okay. That's it, essentially.
And Francis, is there a way to send out an invite that goes into our calendar rather than trying to find it in an email? So just the Zoom invite goes to the full board on those Tuesdays, so we can just open it in our calendar.
That would be good.
Yeah, I'll split it up so that it's got your executives every other. I'll figure it out. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Excellent. Good point, Rick. That's great. Okay, then moving right along, we need a nominating committee to identify new board members, at least for the next phase of expansion here. We're not going to be adding 20 people, but we ought to, the committee can make a recommendation based on what they think is the appropriate number of new members to bring on in January, and obviously the right balance and mix geographically, racially, gender, interest areas, et cetera, as you described, Rick. So I'd like to appoint David Wicks to be the chair of the nominating committee. Okay, David, can you do that?
I appreciate the honor and would willingly do such. And if anybody else on this call wishes to join this committee, please let me know.
Okay, well, I want to be part of it. So who else?
I'll send
Okay.
suggestions. I don't need to be on a committee. I'll just send suggestions your way.
Fine. Excellent. Okay.
And I can help, if we're looking at the Indiana communities to help recruit there, I'll be glad to contribute that way if I can.
Dynamite. So
And-
Jody, what do you, yeah, go ahead. Jeff.
Sir, how many people do you think should be on a slate? Do you want to add 3 or 4 more, or is it just based on who is really good for the fit? Or do we have a goal?
Well, we haven't discussed that yet. My gut says that should be the first topic of the committee as they meet to think that
Okay.
through. Unless there's input from the current board right now. Do you have
Would
any sense,
these,
Doc? Yeah.
I guess my question would be, what is the function if we have are they sort of board members at large? Do they have to be members of the board? Because for example, we've been working with a campaign cabinet at the Crown for the purposes of fundraising. They're not board members, but they are associated as a cabinet committee.
Interesting. Any other thoughts about that?
Well, when we get into resume the work around the chartering of the Ohio River Recreation Trail and things like that, I think the way that evolves is going to play a role into how many board members we'd want in this context. It could be that we wind up in a scenario that Simon just laid out, that the Ohio River Recreation Trail is more of a cabinet effort. That broader executive committee group that David's been meeting with for a long time. So we need that. I don't know that we can answer that question at this moment.
But there's definitely an option of having a big cabinet that doesn't have official board responsibilities and keep this board manageable size-wise, and yet make sure it's as representative as it can be of the extent of this trail for over a 275-mile stretch of the Ohio River. I think one thing that, and I want to make sure that David hears this too, that we have to be very careful of is we can't afford to have this be seen as just a Cincinnati organization. I think we need to make sure we have representation from the Louisville area and from further upstream, Portsmouth, and et cetera. So that's
You're going to Portsmouth
sensitivity. I'm going to Portsmouth tomorrow. That's right, to help dedicate a new trail they just developed. So I'll be representing all of us with the mayor and all the top people up there. And we definitely have to have somebody from Portsmouth. But anyway, I think we can wait for the executive committee, the nominating committee, to hash this through, make a recommendation. And my feeling is it'd be great if we can actually have a process, folks, where we can, the nominating committee can submit a slate, and before the meeting on the 11th of January, have the approval of that slate, so those people can actually participate in January rather than wait until March to get connected. How do you feel about that?
Makes sense.
Okay.
And I like this idea. Remember you had over 200 people on your Zoom call. It seems like the group of interested parties that want to see this advance would be members. You'd have hundreds of members up and down the trail that get minutes or get newsletters from our board and stay connected. And then you have a board that has enough geographic representation and not too many people, so you can get work done. It's actually doing the work and then reporting back to the members. So what we call the people needs to be hashed out by your nominating committee, but you certainly have 2 levels of activity: the work of the board and the decision-making and the fundraising, and then hundreds of people that want to be associated with this group.
Good. Okay, so bottom line is that the nominating committee has a job to do. If necessary, can do it, the sooner we can submit a slate with resumes for each of those people, so we'll have a sense of who they are, unless everybody knows them, and ideally have that slate approved, and then those people before the meeting in January, and have those people actually come to participate in that meeting, whether it's face-to-face or by Zoom. Make sense?
So I'll follow up with Jack and you, Brewster.
Okay.
And if anybody else has any other suggestions, please send them my way. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, moving right along, administrative matters. Simon, thank you. I need to get it. I think, Simon, it'd be great. We're talking about the post office box. It was renewed by you for $106 or whatever. That's great. It's already paid for another year. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, good. And so how many keys do you have?
Just one.
All right.
It's downtown. It's at the downtown post office opposite Fountain Square. The main post office there, by where
Okay.
underneath where Palomino's used to be.
Yeah.
Next to
Okay.
Palomino's.
Well, I'm going to be in Florida most of the winter, so I'm not going to be able to personally check it. But Jody said that, Jody, would you be open to, on a regular basis when you're downtown, taking your walks from your house? I don't know. The thing is, we don't get a lot of mail, do we, at this point, Simon?
No, very little. We do get the letter from the insurance company, a couple of other things. But the banking we're all getting mainly online. I get the bank statements online. I think Rick might get some mail to his home. I don't know. But yeah, there's not a lot of mail that comes of any importance. However, we need to be monitoring it.
Yes.
I only really empty it once a month.
Okay. Well, maybe we try to jack that up to once every 2 weeks. And then the question is, can we make additional keys so that several of us can switch off responsibilities?
I'm also downtown every Wednesday.
I'm sorry, who?
I'm
Scott.
also downtown every Wednesday, so.
Wow. Well, Scott,
That might work.
would you be willing to take on that responsibility? Your office is a couple blocks away.
Exactly. I'm just over at P&G, so I'm happy to do every other week if I can get a key.
I'll get a key to you, Scott. How about that? And we'll work
Happy
out.
to do so.
That would
That's
be great.
wonderful. And so then we'll just leave it to you, Scott, to figure out what has been delivered and how it should be processed. And we don't expect a lot at this point, given everything's electronic anyway. Okay, thank you.
If nothing else, I'll bust it open, scan it, and you'll get it in email.
Perfect. Good. Thank you very much. And then the next point is a checking account. We discussed last time the idea of setting up an additional checking account that's specifically for the Ohio River Recreation Trail expenditures and deposits. And that Simon, your suggestion was that we have several different signers on that. I'd love to have you be a signer as well on that account, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense for me to be a signer because sometimes invoices will make their way to me. So I would recommend that we have a checkbook and maybe a debit card as well, because so many of these things you pay online. So I can easily go to, if you're interested in staying with Fifth Third, which is probably the easiest way, I can approach them and get another account opened up and order a checkbook and a debit card, which I can keep in a safe place, if you like, if you're okay with that. And then the signers, yeah, I think it will be good to have more than one signer, but we shouldn't require everybody to sign. We should allow one signature, otherwise it takes forever to get anything paid.
I agree. So it just struck me that given that Jody is, well, I'm not sure it matters really, but Jody, would you be open to being one of the authorized signers?
I'm happy to do that.
Okay. I don't need to be one, let me tell you. But between the two of you, there's no reason why we couldn't get a check signed unless you guys decide to take a vacation for 6 months out of town, right?
Yeah, we still make payments.
All right, then why don't we agree that Simon, you and Jody can get together and figure out how to open up that new account and get the authorization for your signatures with just one required.
Okay. Jody, I will reach out to you via your email address, which I assume is in the
Sure.
In the invitation.
It is.
Bruce has put out. Okay, and we'll get that sorted out. I can get that done in the next week, I should think. And then do you live downtown, Jody?
I live in Bellevue and I'm downtown all the time, so I just bike over.
Okay. Good. Well, it might be good to meet
Exactly.
actually. Then maybe we can get some of this stuff squared away.
I love it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Jody and Simon, especially you. The next thing here is about additional administrators for the website, for the Ohio River Way, and for the Facebook page. Who's currently the administrator for the Facebook page? Do you guys know? How do we add? Who has the authority?
We stopped using it basically when we started raising money for Crown.
I think there's a Wasson Way. There is a Wasson Way Facebook page. I don't know if Sean does it. Sean McGrory.
But
Okay.
but as far as the Ohio River Way
No, we don't have anything like that. There's no-
website, did we just leave the page up with,
Yep.
with it being converted, sent over to Crown, or what do we do with that?
I didn't know there was one.
Yeah, I think that the most important thing is the website. I mean, because here's an option down the pike, and it depends on what our consultants advise us. But it may be that they advise us to change the name of the Ohio River Recreation Trail to the Ohio River Way. You know, and in which case the website is going to be really critical to us, as well, frankly, as a Facebook page. So
I don't even know if we kept the domain, you know, once we stopped using it to promote the trail, what happened, Simon, you know?
No, we still have it. It's all current.
Oh.
I've been paying the domain and the hosting and all of that. So
Okay.
we have ohioriverway.org. I don't know if that's still what you would like to have, Brewster.
well, I think we just need to keep our options open. I know it's basically a placeholder page when you go to that site.
Yeah, anybody can
That's
look
all.
at it.
Yeah.
Anybody can look at it right now. It's ohioriverway.org. And
So,
it basically, here it is. It basically points you over to the Crown.
Right. So what I guess I'm asking is how do we go about getting access to manage that website?
I've got an administrator password, but I don't actually do any of it myself because I don't know how to.
So maybe that's all we need, just to make sure that with the bottom line is you're telling us that we can manage the website, like we have the ability to add to it or change it any way we want, correct?
Yeah, and we've been using a contractor by the name of David Abad, and Rick may know where he first came from. I don't know. But
I know David. Yeah.
Oh, you do? Okay, so he's been actually making the changes that we need.
is this what's the site sitting on? I mean, is it?
It's hosted by One World Hosting, it's called.
Is it like a WordPress site, or is it, you know, I mean,
It's WordPress, yes.
it's WordPress. I mean, if it's just simple postings, I do a couple of the WordPress sites for a couple of the groups. I'm not great. If it's just content.
Good.
Also, I think I was going back and looking, we used to have the Riverside segment Ohio River Trail page on Facebook. And I think I do have administrative install on that, but that should probably be pulled down. There's only been a couple postings over the last couple of years.
Okay. All right. Good. So fine. Thank you.
Brewster?
Thank you. Yeah. Yes.
I'd like to suggest Miriam Wise with Adventure Crew does a great job with the Ohio River Recreation Trail webpage already.
Right.
And I think, you know, until we really get our consultants on board and doing all that, I'd like to see if we could impose upon Miriam to handle that, and I'll even help support her in some way, shape, or form if that's appropriate with everybody.
Excellent. But the bottom line is that we have access to the site and potentially to the Facebook page, and we can do with it what we strategically decide is wise down the pike.
Yes.
Yeah, the
Right.
Facebook page, there is a Facebook page.
That's Simon. That's the one I think I have access to. I haven't even looked at this in forever.
No, it's probably out of date. But
Yeah, similar to the effort that was done when the Crown had different entities. I think we need to figure out which hierarchy. We're going to drive people to one page versus 6. So let's get into the work with the consultants and figure out
Exactly.
which page.
Yeah. And
I mean, if this only has 20 members, then it is not an asset
Right.
that we might
That's
think it
probably
is.
the old one, the Riverside segment, I think at one point had over 1,000. But once again, we need to figure out how to morph or change. I mean, this went back to when we were doing petition drives, you know, on trails. So
Yeah.
it was a long
Yeah,
time ago.
And we won't be using this for any kind of fundraising or awareness building for the Crown. We're all off at, we're crowncincinnati.org, so we'll never need it for trail fundraising or programming purposes. So
And honestly, you can get a lot of this can be got through, you know, just some paid promotion, very small amount of money, paid promotion. You can get people very quickly if you're linked into those communities.
Good.
Appropriately.
Okay, good. I think we're on top of that piece. So let's move on, and just to confirm what we do have.
Somebody is posting on the Ohio River Trail Facebook page because somebody posted today. Says today is election day. Here's a friendly reminder to vote yes on SU 29. So it is being updated.
Some ghost writers here.
No doubt.
Rick, do you know who's updating our Facebook?
No, I don't.
The
I
last
don't
one
use
saw-
Facebook. I don't know how to even tell you how that's happening, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, the last one I saw was a pinned post by Joe Belante, who I'm a good friend with. Oh yeah, it was Joe Belante. So he's a big cyclist. He also works for QNO2. So
Yeah, we
so
should
it
recruit
looks
him
like
to be on.
it looks like he's been posting he's been doing a lot of the posting on it. So we should definitely get him.
Good. Can you follow up with him? Just
Of course.
okay, great, excellent. Okay, the next thing is just to confirm their assignment about our directors and officers insurance that we do. It's paid up, and remind for the new board members how long. I mean, what it covers and how long it's paid for.
Oh, I wasn't prepared for that question.
Oh,
but
no
yes,
problem.
It
I'm
is.
sorry.
It is current. It's with Cincinnati Insurance. It's directors and officers insurance. But we got a reduced rate this year because we told them that we were effectively dormant. So now that we're taking on a new project, we should probably go back to them and say, okay, here's the new board. This is the new board, and we've now got new projects. And does that impact our insurance premium? And I'd be happy to do that once we know what we're doing.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
I think the anniversary is of March every year.
Yeah, I think that's right, Rick. Yeah, we just re-upped in March.
Good. And I know Jody has to drop off and she'll join us back on if we're still around when she has her minute or next minute, as soon as her urgent conference call is over. Thank you, Jody. Good work. Okay, well, thank you very much, Simon. I'd like to make sure we get back to everybody with clarity about whether we need to upgrade the existing policy to make sure, given what we're doing, that we're all covered properly. Okay. Okay, so next thing here is an update, Rick, on the Crown and WIM. What do we all need to know?
William, go ahead.
Does everybody know what the Crown stands for? I bet David doesn't. Yeah, do you?
I'm good. I'm good.
All right, okay. Well, real quickly, as most of you know, 16 years ago, we started trying to figure out how we could get Lunken to Smale Park done within a year or two. And a lot of political hurdles. Jack Sutton was with us even at those first moments, I remember. And day one, Jack said, I'm with you and I'm going to maintain it for you, which was fabulous, which gave us great confidence. Unfortunately, there were a number of other politicians who were a little more difficult to deal with without naming names in the city and the county. And the railroad, who just treated us without much ado. Anyway, so finally we got together with Wasson Way and said, let's make this a bigger vision. Let's go full bore for it. Let's get some traction here. And we did. And luckily, John Cranley said, you know, I'll help you. And he sat down with the railroad and put together a term sheet. And he was pushing Wasson Way, obviously. And so phase one is to do this 25-mile loop around the city. It's close to a $60 million total project with dollars needing for matching. As Jack Sutton knows, these dollars are coming from city, state, and federal. And we've been trying to grab every dollar possible. Jack did an amazing job of connecting all the way to Beechmont on his trails, and then orchestrating the Beechmont Bridge, which is a huge project, and what, $8 million, Jack, right?
Yeah, close to it, yes.
And it's going to be a remarkable connection to the Lunken 10-mile track.
Fantastic.
The other thing Jack did is took over when the mayor said to us, we have to maintain Wasson. We said, well, we can't do that. And we negotiated where Jack took over Lunken Airport and the city agreed to take over Wasson. So Jack's been a phenomenal partner, and Todd now. So our goal is to raise about $8 million. Well, our goal is $8 million to match all the dollars needed to make this happen. As Rick said, our plan is to celebrate in December the success of our goal, which we're not talking about yet because we're still raising money. We'd love to get way above that, and we're pushing to make that happen. So end of the year, the rest of Wasson Way will be completed all the way down to the sports club and to Marymount to Xavier. And then next year they'll start on Xavier to UC, and met with the chief architect at UC yesterday to try to figure out how it spiders its way through UC all the way down to Mill Creek, and in addition down Gilbert Avenue by the art steps, the ballet, and downtown. So lots happening. Every year there's something going on. It's fun to sell something that actually has tangible results. And everyone we've taken on the trail has given us something, anywhere from $1 to $1 million. So it's been incredibly positive. Rick has been our orchestrator there also, in addition to Ohio River Way. And he's been pushing the ball as hard as anybody. So Rick, what do you want to add to it?
That's it. I'm anxious to not only announce the completion of our campaign on this, but tee up phase two, because that really is a infrastructure project that we hope to be on top of the list, right behind Western Hills Viaduct and the I-75 bridge, because you build that all at once, one phase instead of over 15 years. We see it as a huge economic development driver, like a new highway. There's 10,000 empty lots and houses in those neighborhoods. And we're working with the port and with other entities to try to make sure we have control over commercial and residential parcels. So when the trail's announced, we can make sure we have a nice mix of affordable and workforce and market rate housing. So it's a big vision. It's going to be exciting to hopefully get started here next year sometime, if the infrastructure bill ever gets passed. So stay tuned.
Maybe this week. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Wim. Anybody have any additions to Wim's report? Very exciting, unbelievable.
I would, if next time you, David comes to town fairly frequently. So if there's an opportunity to ever familiarize him with literally the landscape, that would be probably useful just when it comes to these contexts. So maybe at the announcement of the completion of, we can cajole Mr. Wicks up to town and show him around so we can get a better context of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, we love to do tours.
It would be a pleasure. I love going up to Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky. It's just beautiful. And I think it'd be fun to have a celebration to be there for the final fundraising piece for the Crown. It would just be great.
Bring your mud boots in case we're going to go on the new trail. Yeah.
Well, I have a pair of mud boots.
Yeah. All right. Good.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. Anything else on the trail report? It's so exciting. Can't wait. And you'll make sure we all get invited to the announcement in December, the celebration. Right, Rick?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Wim. Dynamite. Okay. So in the time we have remaining here, what we wanted to do is to have an update, a brief update, because I know we've been talking to each other a lot about what's going on with the Ohio River Recreation Trail. And some of you, in fact, Rick was a star in our summit we had the other day, where we had over 280 people register at any given time. 200 people were on the call for 2 hours. It was amazing. And we positioned Rick to be the last boosting cheerleader. He gave an amazing rap that people are still talking about, Rick. It's amazing what you did. You positioned this on a whole new level. It was great. So anyway, David and Francis, can you bring folks up to speed on where we are and what the immediate next steps are here?
Well, let me start off and just say, I think that one-page overview of our accomplishments that we sent out to all of our registrants and participants in the plan just summarizes it. I think the bottom line is we're set for working with our 40 river towns. I think they're excited. I think we have a good opportunity. For 2 years, we worked with the National Park Service, and I think this transferring into the Ohio Riverway is a good thing for us. We worked hard with the National Park Service as a volunteer group, and Jack, I think, can attest to some of the frustrations of working with an all-volunteer group, and we hope that this next year really solidifies it. I think the conference with the federal and local support is a very good thing. And as Brewster suggested, I think having our board really represent all of the different communities is a good thing. There's an active group here in Louisville involved in river recreation, a bit different than Paddle Fest. We ended up being totally free, and it's our 25th year. It made it through 3 mayors. We have a new election coming up, which we'll see what happens, but they're hike, bike, and paddle. How this fits into, supporting the local communities, that's the dream of the Ohio River Recreation Trail. Right across the way from Louisville, we have a new $100 million park going in, that they're about 3/4 of the money raised for it so far, adjacent to the Falls of the Ohio, with Mr. Scott Martin. And so I think when we really look at the projects going up and down our stretch of the river, it's just really quite surprising that, you know, we can't take credit for all of them, but certainly we're garnering the credit from all of them. I just met with folks from West Point. They're going after several large grants that they think we're going to get almost $13 million for a school that has been vacated for a year and turn that into a sort of a tourist trailhead / museum / environmental center. And we have another plan for one just like that in downtown Louisville, in the west end of Louisville, that just last week got full funding. We got, you know, the city of Louisville got a bunch of money from CARES Act, and I think they've put in $12 million for the new Shawnee Outdoor Learning Center. So as we really pull together these pieces, you know, I spoke to our mayor last week, and he's ever committed. He has matched the Hale Foundation, and they're putting in $50,000. The city of Louisville is, and we'll go out to several of the large philanthropic organizations here in Louisville, and you know, our mayor will help us at least introduce our proposals to them. And so I think combined with this NOG up in Cincinnati and where Brewster's going tomorrow up in Portsmouth, is just exciting. And you know, one of our last items for this agenda, and it's very fitting, you know, that we are going to end up with Frances as our president, but she's helped us think through. You know, Jack has spent probably 4 or 5 months thinking about the structure of what we could create to make this more of a sustainable plan. And I think that, Jack, I think you'll see in many of the proposals that Frances is going to talk about now, that essence is in there. You know, before I give the show over to Frances, I just wanted to make sure that we recognize the work of the National Park Service, who has got us to where we are going, you know, are there now. In part, it was situational, you know, just having the arrowhead made a lot of difference to these small towns. Bottom line is the work from Andrea Ireland and Russ Clark really helped us, you know, think about the future of the trail and to push us beyond a volunteer role. And so we've, under Frances's leadership, really have worked with human nature and R2D2, as Brewster calls them, and R2W, I guess, you know, the Kohler folk, but have come up with a fascinating project that is ambitious, which, you know, I like. You know, I think it's a timely deal. And so, Frances, why don't you talk a little bit about, you know, what this scope of work is, and hopefully at the end of Frances's time, people will say, that's a good deal. Brewster, go ahead and sign it. And so that's the ask at the end of this, is that, you know, our item number 9 is the resolution to sign it. Brewster did send out a copy of it just recently, about 2 minutes before this meeting started. So go ahead, Frances, and correct if anything I said wrong, or describe what you plan on doing to straighten us out.
So, yeah, I mean, you all don't need straightening, but the Crown folks certainly have set the bar high, but everyone here is familiar with organizational development and how it needs certain things at certain stages of its development. And thus far, as we talked about at the summit, the Ohio River Recreation Trail has been managed by volunteers, and we're trying to get it into its next phase of life. The Ohio River Recreation Trail doesn't have what, say, the Oasis and the Crown had by way of a different structure with Tri-State Trails. We're having to build that a little bit on the way. And so we're trying to get it out of its existing state of voluntary role, and we're always going to have volunteers involved, but there's a whole lot of work behind it, and we're trying to elevate it into the next stage of its life. And so this chunk of initial planning and funding money would help catalyze the actual relationships that the communities have up and down the river from Portsmouth to Westport, to become members, paid members, into an operating budget that could then help feed the initiatives long term. So this initial step with Human Nature, I'm involved with Human Nature, with the Right to Win Cities initiative, which is part of Frost Brown Todd's group and Kelly Kolar, and the U.S. Army Corps. This is simply to create a product by which, it's not simply, but it is to frame up what we've been doing with regards to the partner entities that we have up and down the river that we hope to become paid partners, so that we can then eventually evolve into something that is implementing potentially real trail development along the way. As it exists today, I mean, we've been talking about going after EDA tourism dollars that are available on a regional basis. And we feel as though and correct me if I'm wrong too, folks, David and Brewster, but in its current shape, it would be less likely to receive funding in its current shape than if we really put a better frame on the actual organization and have dedicated revenue coming annually by way of a membership system. So we also, Brewster, do you want to talk more about what the human nature component of it is with regards to taking all of the pieces of information we have through our in-kind participation with the National Park Service? We have a ton of studies that have been done. Well, maybe a ton is a bit of a stretch, but we have a lot of research that's been done on it, but we need to make it more user-friendly with regards to the trail. And so that is a huge chunk of what we're doing with the human nature involvement.
Let me jump in right here instead of Brewster. If you want to interrupt, go ahead. But the bottom line is the National Park Service gave us a landscape architect and a facilitator, and we worked with 9 towns that really did a mini review of each one of those towns and have a good plan individually for those towns. And I think what the human nature piece is going to do is to mine that data and to make it more consistent, and to then work with Kolar, create that brand of what it could be and how can we connect it. And the Corps and the 3 states involved then use common signage at, like, the Ohio River, for an example. It's the only place I've ever been paddling, and I've been paddling all over the United States and North America. No signs. You know, you go to a boat ramp and there's no geographic signs, no safety signs. You know, you go to the Gauley River and they're everywhere. You go up to outside of Pittsburgh. But anyway, that's just one example. And then we also, you know, I love the OKI folks tremendously. And there are a bunch of GIS geeks who've created a very geeky friendly digital guide, and the Kolar people and the human nature people believe they can build upon that, which might be a model for then the entire Ohio River Basin. One of the things that we didn't really talk about is that there's a whole other network of people looking at the Ohio River Basin. And so that's a whole other discussion, but another U.S. Army Corps project. And so I think this next phase really is that data collection, the systematic analysis of it, and then the promotion of it. Be it, you know, we have great maps, but they're hard to read. You know, can we have a consistent local map, regional map, and system-wide map that could bring everybody together? But I think the biggest part for me is human nature has that experience and the background that can pull off something like this, that blends in the ecological restoration, the potential of, the National Park Service says every 6 miles you should have a access point. Well, if you really look at our 200 plus miles, we probably have 4 sections that need that additional access point. So I think between human nature.
I'm familiar with Human Nature's work and with Kolar's work. What's the scope of work that they're proposing in this first contract, and where's the money coming from to fund it? Francis, do you have the scope nailed down on what you can get funded in the first phase of their work?
We have $100,000 that's coming in by the end of January, should be in from 2 different sources. We're working so we're gonna do it in phases. The work would be done in phases. We wouldn't initiate anything that wasn't already funding in hand. We're trying to pay attention to that. And then Brewster has some. Are you willing to make your next announcement news, or is it too soon?
Yeah,
Brew?
no, but literally, I've kept an hour before this meeting. I got follow up to an email I sent. What's his name? Robert Edmondson with the Mishua Farm Foundation. He said that we've been back and forth about their level of support. He approached me about this, by the way, and was on the call, the summit, and he says they want to give $20,000 for 3 to 4 years each year, earmarked for the digital guide development. That is a digital GIS mapping stuff, that piece of the overall project. So that's another 60 to 80,000, but it'll be spread out over 3 to 4 years. So that's good, and then we got to figure out, can we get something out of the county? Can Great Parks contribute? What about some of these other foundations throughout the region? We haven't talked about Greater Cincinnati or others, but I think it's a compelling project. It's very concrete, and it has great economic benefits potentially especially for the river towns. So,
and the U.S. Army Corps, if we ever go through with all of the paperwork and their rigmarole, they've pledged a dollar for dollar match for everything that we raise. So, and that's one of the challenges, because they're talking about 250,000, but if we raise more than that, then we just have to sort of really hone in on what do they do best, and what could Human Nature and Polar do, and how the two can work together. So, but when it comes down to navigation responsibility, the Corps is where it's at on the Ohio River.
But the bottom line is, the way that would work is that we would define with them the overall project, and they would take, as we have been working with them for the last number of weeks, and they would say, we'll do this part of that overall project. A lot of it is the data development, and then some of the detailed mapping, et cetera. And then they pay using their own dollars, their own staff, to do that piece of work essentially as an in-kind to us. And then the value of what we raise and pay and contract with Human Nature would be matched for that. So the bottom line is, we get them to do $150,000, $200,000 worth of work, as long as we spend the same amount of money doing the other parts of this overall project.
And just one final more piece for that, which I find fascinating, is that it's helping the Corps even focus more. So for an example, they've made a pledge now in the Huntington district to do an analysis of all of their Army Corps owned land and the impact for recreation. And so that's not costing the Ohio Riverway, the Ohio River Recreation Trail, a penny. That was just a decision of the colonel there in Cincinnati, actually, encouraged the Corps to go forward and to do that.
Brewster, it seems what would be really helpful to the new board members, meaning us, to this particular project, is to have Francis describe the ideal vision when it's done, and then break it into 15 pieces that you hope to contract individually over the next 5 years to get there. So we know how the initial piece is building towards the second piece, the third piece, the fourth piece. Because right now, I don't see the path, and it'd be good to get a better sense of that at our next meeting, especially when we're approving contracts and know that this one's going to build to the next contract as we raise more money.
Well, I think at this point, there's what, a $200,000
Well, first of all, can I just say, Sue, it's good to see you, and you're on mute. But if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself here, we're still involved in our board meeting, obviously. Thanks for
I'm
joining.
glad that I double checked to make sure. Sue Schneider, Louisville, Kentucky. I'm with River City Paddle Sports and Derby City Dragons, and glad to be here and at least joining part of the meeting.
Yes. And Sue is an attorney, has been for years in Louisville, and spent a lot of time with nonprofit organizations. And so glad that you could join us. I know you had another meeting.
Thanks. Thank you, Brewster.
Go, Francis. Yeah.
I was just going to try and answer Rick's question to the best that I can right now. We were trying to, if we were to go to the organizations, the potential membership organizations, the cities, the communities right now as we exist, they'd say, who are you aside from Brewster and David Wicks? What's your organizational charter? Where are we sending the check? All that all the stuff that sort of what you're asking right now to an extent, what's the due diligence? So this initial scope is to frame that so that we can then go forth and provide an answer legitimately. Here is our value add we have for you. We're going to engage with the parks, with the U.S. Army Corps. We hope to apply for trail designation status and individual regional funding sources as a group, so that we're providing a value to the membership of the communities along the river, such that they're inclined to join. So we have a much bigger, membership base that has an operating budget, et cetera. That's a fast forward version of what our intention is, but, and I can spell out further for subsequent meetings if we need to.
Okay, and then once the
I realize
organization framework is in place, then you'll get into all the individual projects that will bring it to life. The branding, the signage, the digital websites, the event promotion, all that stuff. But your first phase is to get the organization in place that has ongoing funding capability to take on these big ideas.
Correct. Francis, anything to add to that?
We're very quickly after that. We hope to get going with the branding, the signage, et cetera. It's all included in that original scope that we won't engage with unless funding is in place. So we'll eat away at that scope until we run out of that. And by then we hope to have a formulated organization, potentially with paid staff.
Great. And some of the challenges dictated by the schedule and the agenda here, like the 31st of January is the deadline for a federal EDA huge tourism ARPA grant. Is that what it's called? But anyway, there's $750 million nationally to which nonprofits as well as municipalities and other governmental entities can apply for money to help jumpstart the tourism economy in America, right? And then there's a separate $750 million that's being divided among all the states that go directly to each state's tourism bureau. So Tourism Ohio is going to get, I don't know how many million, and they in turn, with a similar timeline, will be doling that money out within their own states. And so the challenge is here, if we're going to submit any viable applications to either the federal or the state level grants, we got to get our story together better. We have to lay out the different tasks that with their money, plan to use it for. And a lot of that's marketing, right? And so I think it's a very saleable project, especially to the state level folks, for us to be engaged, to have additional resources to market the assets of all these river towns, which are incredibly challenged, as you all know. And the concept that they're a part of the Ohio River Recreation Trail, A, is exciting to them as communities, but B, hopefully is exciting to people that actually take advantage of visiting them and spending money there. But the problem is, in order to get these proposals together, we have to get certain pieces like a quick and dirty printed map, and not the final branding, but some initial thinking of the branding, some sort of visual concept of what the trail is that those guys at Human Nature with Kelly can come up with in 7 weeks. So the problem is, I think what we need here is support based on if we actually have the money in the bank, or a commitment that shows it's coming in by the 2nd of December or whatever. I think what we need is approval for this board through the executive committee, and then approved by the full board by voice, by email, to enter in a contract to do phase one, whether it's like 50, 60, $70,000 worth, not 200,000, which we don't have, but we do have this 50 from the city of Louisville, 50 coming from Hale, and potentially 20 in short order from Edmondson, that allows us to be able to do phase one, which essentially is laying the groundwork for fundraising applications in this, meeting this tight timeline.
So the executive committee will be getting in touch with the rest of the board, letting us know what the scope of work is for the first contract and the amount. And that'll be done via email because you have to move fast. So
Yes.
You'll let us know.
That would be the plan.
We'll do votes on email.
I fully recognize that David, Brewster, and I have been in the weeds on this for 4 or 5 months. So we have our arms around it a little bit better than anybody, than the rest. So if anyone has questions, please give me a call. This is, or any of us, either one of us. We are cooking with gas and we want to keep moving. So that's where we are with it.
And so with Sue's help, actually, we have a draft, if I can find it here, a draft motion. And Rick, let me know if you think this meets, in some ways, I think it reflects exactly what you said, that we're looking to have authorization for the executive committee to negotiate agreements and contracts with the Army Corps and with Human Nature, bringing that back to the full board for approval by email, so we can move ahead with the scope limited to what we have the resources to fund currently.
Makes sense for me.
Any other discussion about that draft motion that you see under item 9 on the agenda? Sue, does that, I changed a couple words, does that reflect on the agenda if you can see it? I think it does. It's the exact intent of what you wrote. So in other words, the executive committee has no authority that's binding unless and until it's approved by the full board by email.
That
So
works. That is works. It works so much that I would make the motion that this motion for the executive committee to act on behalf of the entire board, bringing it back for approval, and that said motion be passed. I'll make the motion for that. Any seconds?
Yeah, any seconds? Rick? Okay, excellent. Any further discussion of this? It's really exciting that we actually are going to be able to move forward with this. So if there are no other comments, all those in favor of the motion as proposed, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Great progress. I love it, guys. Thank you so much. And thank you, Sue, for your drafting that, the legal side. We appreciate that. And remind me, who offered the motion just for the minutes here?
I offered.
Oh, that's right, you did. Okay, and then Rick second. Okay. Well, wonderful. We have a lot of work to do the next few days to come back to you all with a particular resolution about how to move forward with this. But it's exciting, folks, don't you think? And Rick, thanks again for your critical role you played in the summit. It was great, and you sparked other people to say really bold things too.
All right, I'll have to remember what it is I said. Give me a script.
Well, I think that you just, you said essentially we have to really recognize this incredible, unique asset that we have here. And you mentioned, I think it was you, we have from the Scioto to the Salt River, we have this incredible set of tributaries building upon this amazing waterway that is very unique in America, and we need to tout our own horn and let people know with pride what we have to offer that's so unique and special that it would be a reason for people to come and move here, come and visit here for 2 or 3 days, explore in their own backyard the unique things that we have to offer that are not available anywhere else in America. It was great.
But we got to stop acting like we're the Midwest. Let's rebrand ourselves from the Midwest to something exciting like we're doing here. So
yeah, it was good. It was great. So the bottom line is, because of that, I think I mentioned Anastasia Milam. Is that how you pronounce her last name? Milam from Experience Cincinnati, which is the entity nonprofit in Cincinnati whose job it is to promote the region to the national press. She called the next day and said, Rick turned me on about what this is all about, and I'm so excited. So the 3 of us or 4 of us spent time with her the other day on the phone, just running through the whole thing. And she says, this is saleable. This is big. I want to get this word out about what we're trying to create. She didn't want to wait until a year from now. So that was great. Thank you, Rick. All right, folks, I think we went through the agenda as designed. Is there any other, first of all, any comments, any closing comments by folks?
I have one coming up on November 16th. We have a nice webinar called Ohio River Recreation. And this is featuring this guy, Scott Martin, down here in Origin Park, who is building a beautiful brand new park right by the Falls of the Ohio. Then we have the National Park Service with the River Trails and Conservation Assistance Program, and our president, Francis, talking about what we just sort of done. I talked about it. It's really sponsored by Orsenko, which is just a fascinating organization. They're doing all of the behind the scenes work. The Ohio River Basin is sort of looking at all of our 13 states. So we'll invite people from all 13 states to come with us. And then of course, the National Park Service and the Foundation for Ohio River Education. So that's coming up. I'll make sure I send you an invite. And that is on November 16th.
Excellent. Thank you, David. And Wim, Rob did a great job with his recorded comments for the summit. I don't know if you heard what he said, but it was really, it was great. And Tom Massey from Northern Kentucky did a good job as well. And then the director, of tourism for the state of Indiana. So we're going to be following through with her to see if she will challenge her tourism directors from Kentucky and Ohio to match what they want to put in from their allocation from the feds for tourism development. And so that's the next play we're going to make starting next week. So
And then,
Yeah.
I was just going to say that we want to continue rolling with the enthusiasm that was generated by the summit, which is another reason why we've got Massey's attention, we've got Mr. Portman's attention, which we can pretend it's hard to get for the Ohio, but maybe it's not that hard to get for the Ohio, but we have Indiana's attention. So we want to keep rolling with this. And now would be a great time to be going after regional funding for the trail. So
Yep.
we need to.
Yeah, Rob did do a good job, Brewster. He had the Brewster smirk every time he spoke, I noticed, yeah. But
well, he did great.
One thing, and I'm hoping within the next week that infrastructure bill will be passed. And the question is, how can you get some funds from that infrastructure bill? Yeah, and the next bill, but I think the infrastructure bill, I think there's some opportunities for you guys. Yeah.
Agree 100%. And
Yeah.
maybe you could place a call to your relative there and see if he has any good advice. But the bottom line is his staff is wonderful, as you know. And I think we need to follow up with them, and Sheriff Brown's office, the same thing. Actually, McConnell's chief of staff for Northern Kentucky was on the call as well, and we had Governor Beshear's office on the call.
Great.
So I think that it's plus Tourism Ohio was there. So it really was an amazing cross section of participants. So okay, folks, is there any old business? Is there any new business we haven't talked about? Well, if that's the case, then there's a follow-up that we all have to do with the rest of you to put before you as a more concrete proposal to authorize the expenditure or commitment of money to get jumping and meet these deadlines and go the next phase in the operation.
Brew, we haven't got any money.
I know, that's right. So
We can't commit money, we haven't got any.
no, I understand. Which is why, we do have a letter of commitment from Hale, which they won't actually technically vote until the 2nd of December. But we got an initial letter that says we're doing this, which is great. And we have a commitment from Louisville, but it's all about when the cash arrives. But the cash flow is another separate issue from the commitments here, I think. So we'll figure it out.
So the question, because you're moving fast and furious, if you have letters of commitments from these parties and the check isn't going to arrive until January sometime, is this board comfortable with us spending money based upon commitments? Because you're not going to get a bill from your vendors for 30 days either. I mean, so I'm opening that to discussion for a minute, because I want you to be able to hit this deadline that's coming up for this big grant at the end of January. I'm comfortable if you have some letters of commitment, because these are reliable partners. Edmondson, Eric Abner at Hale, City of Louisville with David's connection. So if it's on a letterhead and it's committed on paper, I'm okay with initiating work with Human Nature, as long as they know they might not get paid for 30 or 40 days.
Exactly. And we've talked about them with them about this, right, Francis, directly?
Yeah, I mean, Human Nature's participated in work that has been funded by the Hale Foundation previously, and they know they're good for it, especially based on the commitment letter. Honestly, it's the second. I don't know how much they could really burn between now and the other second in December. So I think, unless we meet again, it's helpful to have these decisions being made so that we can keep rolling.
Good.
Do we need to put that to a vote, or Simon, are you comfortable with that? Because you're our treasurer. What do you think? Because
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we need, I actually don't think we need a vote, but yeah.
All right. Good.
Okay. Folks, thank you very much. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Well, thank you very much, Scott. Seconded, and thank you so much. We're very grateful, and this has been a wonderful meeting. I really am excited about everybody collaborating so energetically around another big complementary vision to the Crown. It's like Crown squared, So Crown on steroids. That's right. Okay.
Keep
Well,
pushing.
we look forward to coming up there, Sue. They're going to have a big announcement in December sometime of their final fundraising initiative. And so we've been invited to go up, and Sue just came back from Berlin, where she is a international marathoner. So she'll probably be able to check out your running course.
I expect you to run to Cincinnati for this thing.
That's right. All right.
No.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks,
folks.
guys.
Get on with the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for the
Thank you.
Bye.